Welcome to the Vetiver Vibes podcast. We're your hosts, Nikki Fraser and Rachel Dean, certified clinical aromatherapists. We are excited to have you here on today's episode where you know that you'll get the best essential oil scoop.
This episode is brought to you by Essentria, a leading online school for aromatherapy. If you want to learn more about how to become a clinical aromatherapist, check out the courses at www.schoolofessentria.com. Welcome to this week's episode of Vetiver Vibes. Nikki Fraser here with Elefteria Mantzorou. And I hope I said that right. We were saying, I put the French spin even though you're Greek.
Yeah.
So Elefteria has been studying and practicing medicinal plants, essential oils, and traditional bodywork since 2004. Her approach combines therapeutic techniques with a deep respect for plant-based medicine. She's particularly fascinated by the chemistry of essential oils and how their compounds influence the body. Elefteria also spends time foraging, drawing knowledge and inspiration directly from nature. Welcome to the podcast.
Yeah, so nice to see you, Nikki.
Yeah.
Thank you for having me here.
Absolutely. So I know chemistry is one of those things when it comes to aromatherapy that I find some people embrace it, but a lot of people are terrified of it and don't quite understand how it fits into aromatherapy. So I'm super excited to kind of dive deep into that with you. But before we do that, we always like to ask each of our guests, what is your favorite essential oil?
Oh, my favorite essential oil is absolutely lemongrass. Yeah, I've always loved the lemongrass.
Nice.
For me, it has been like a surprising essential oil because beyond its aroma, I like the versatility of lemongrass. Yeah, and I think that what is often gets overlooked is lemongrass's calming action because it's an essential oil that can modulate the parasympathetic nervous system, and you can also use it also for muscle pain. It can also enhance the scent of blends, which maybe it's not so nice. So it's a very versatile oil with the clinical applications, and I like it because of that. Maybe it reminds me a little bit of Thailand also.
Nice. I like that. It's one that I used to use it a little bit more, and I haven't used it quite recently, but it's the scent, the aroma of it is something that is typically nice. It's not strong and in your face, but it's not super gentle flory. Like it's to me, it does
Yes,
have that kind of nice aroma, that kind of
yes,
just
yes,
that
of
nice
course.
sweet spot.
Yes, yes. I also like it because it's kind of affordable. So
Hmm. Yeah.
when it comes the moment for me to diffuse an essential oil in my space, I just don't think about it. Oh, it also drives away mosquitoes. It's a bonus.
Yes, absolutely. So I'd love to know, how did you get into aromatherapy?
That was really like back in the day. I was trained formally in aromatherapy back in 2002. Yeah, but I think that my interest had started a little bit before that because I was already working in complementary medicine, and somehow I always had a strong connection to the plant world. Like plants, I like to use them as medicine, as a tradition, and as tools for care. Yeah, and in a way, aromatherapy had actually caught my attention because it had that same plant foundation, but somehow in a different and in a more concentrated form. It was also super fun in the beginning to play with essential oils, yeah, because you can use them in massage treatments, which I like. You can use essential oils for emotional support, pain relief, so many things. And there was a school that offered official certification in the European Union in my area. So I just went on and received this formal education. That absolutely gave me some structure.
Nice. That's great. So today we're going to be diving into aromatherapy. The chemistry of aromatherapy. And as I kind of just touched upon, some people find it a little intimidating. Some people, especially if in your mind you kind of go back to high school chemistry, and I know I will use myself as an example, math and chemistry were not my forte. I did not like anything science based. I failed, I think it was grade 11
I can
math,
relate.
and I struggled in science, and chemistry was like that worst nightmare for me as a high school student. And so when I remember taking my own studies and thinking, oh my gosh, there's a chemistry section, and we didn't have a whole lot of
Yeah.
chemistry in the course that I took, which is why we really wanted to kind of vamp up our chemistry for Essentria, to really make sure that the students understood it and really understood the importance behind it too, but trying to make it as simple and kind of relatable as possible. So maybe you can kind of talk about, how does chemistry relate to aromatherapy and the importance of it?
Of course, of course. Before starting, I'd like to tell you that chemistry was not my forte too in high school. Yeah, in fact, I was always finding an excuse to miss class, and yeah, I never liked any of that stuff. And I
Mhm.
can tell you that the first time I studied chemistry after high school was in aromatherapy. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
I never liked that kind of stuff too. And what I would say that the chemistry in aromatherapy, it can look a little bit complicated at first, yeah. But once you somehow get a feel for the patterns, I think it's a lot more manageable than more people think. Like it has nothing to do with, of course, with medical school organic chemistry, yeah. Like no one is going to ask you to draw benzene rings or memorize reaction pathways and all that stuff. But it's always a good idea to have like a working understanding of the major functional groups in essential oils and what those groups tend to do in the body. Yeah, like I think that the challenge for most people is the language, like names like sesquiterpenes, monoterpenols, oxide esters, all that stuff. Yeah, they can definitely sound absolutely intimidating in the start, but if you strip away the terminology, what you are really learning is how an essential oil behaves. Yeah, like if I tell you that something like an essential oil is high in esters, like linalool oxidate, yeah, which we find in lavender, that should immediately tell you that it's likely to be calming, antispasmodic, and gentle on the skin. Yeah, like if it's rich in phenols, like eugenol or thymol, that tells you that it's going to be strong, stimulating, and perhaps a little bit irritating if you're not a little bit careful. So once you learn the core groups and their patterns, you're not really memorizing endless facts, you're just somehow building what I like to call a clinical instinct.
Mhm.
And one reason it may feel a little bit complicated, it can be because essential oils, they are made up of one or two chemicals. Yeah, they're complex mixtures. Sometimes you have like 100 chemical compounds in a single essential oil. But in practice, you don't need to know all 100 of that, yeah?
No.
Just of course, you just need to know the key chemical compounds, the ones that are dominant, and the ones that influence safety or the therapeutic action. And then you build from here somehow. This is happy. I think that what makes it easier is experience. And like
Yep.
I remember the first time I read a gas chromatography report, I think it was very confusing for me. But after a while, when you gain experience with that, you just look at a report and you can immediately filter out what is important. Yeah, you don't need to understand like every trace compound. You just need to know what that batch is going to do.
And that's why we always say, look at the top 2 to 3 kind of components, right? Because
Yes,
like you
yes,
said, you don't
absolutely.
need to look at every single thing because essential oils are so complex. They have so many chemical constituents in each one of them, which is why you can use them so versatile. Like you can use lavender for inflammation, for sleep, for headaches. Like you get like all kinds of different things. That's the beauty of them.
I
Um,
couldn't agree more, of course.
but yeah, just like look at the top. We usually say, around 3, and then that'll give you a good hint of what is most in that oil. And then you can keep going from there.
Yes, yes, absolutely. Absolutely. It's like that.
Yeah. And so I like what you said of just kind of knowing the words themselves can be absolutely like foreign language almost when you're just
Yeah.
getting into it. But like you said too, like I know in our chemistry course, we talk about like benzene rings and all of that. So that people kind of get in it, and that's in our clinical course. But like you don't need that part for the blending necessarily and for like knowing the safety aspects. It's just kind of
Okay.
information to have, but you don't need that at your fingertips day to day,
I agree. I
where
agree.
it's more of, what is something like an ether? What is an ether known for? Being
Mhm.
antispasmodic and analgesic and things like that. So then you can know, oh, okay, if I'm looking for that pain blend, maybe I can put something high in ether in it, like that, the basil or sweet fennel or anything like that.
Yes, yes,
It's
of course.
I find that's a nice way of doing it.
Yes, yes, of course, of course. Sometimes some technical information is not really, I mean, immediately applicable.
Hmm.
But of course, it's always a good idea to know what's behind that. Yeah.
Yeah. And so when you are actively working with the essential oils, do you h- do you kind of blend with the chemistry in mind, that type of thing? Or because like
Mm.
when you're blending, I guess maybe I should reword this too. When you're blending through the chemistry components, what is it that you're often looking at?
It really depends. Like if I'm making a mixture for massage therapy, I will always look for caryophyllene. For
Hmm.
example, yeah, I mean
Yep.
you
Camisole's
need
great.
an anti-inflammatory compound. Um, Also, if I want to make a blend for skincare, I'm going to look for esters that are suitable for sensitive skin, for example, or I'm going to look for compounds that are suitable for acne-prone skin.
Mm.
But if I'm blending just for fragrance or for relaxation, I will just focus on the scent and the fragrance.
Yeah, and right, and that's the nice part of you can blend in so many different ways of
Yes, yes, of
morphology, the
course,
chemistry, the aromatic
of
aspect, the
course.
therapeutic. Like there's so many ways of blending with the oils, which is nice.
But you also, what I have found out in my aromatherapy practice is that you also have to take into account the fragrance. Yeah,
Hmm.
like at the point, I have made some blends which I considered that they are wonderful. They contain milk, yeah, and they were for skincare, for dry skin. And I remember that the lady who had asked for that cream, she said, "Can you please take that cream back? Because I really can't put it on my face." So I had to add a little bit of ylang ylang,
Hmm.
in the blend to make it smell nicely. You know, that was really in my beginnings. And that made me realize that for people, for most people, scent is also important.
Hmm. Yeah, if it doesn't smell good, they're not going to be compliant in using it. And then you've just
Exactly.
wasted the oils and wasted their time, wasted your time, wasted the material. So absolutely, it comes down to okay, let's make the blend, but also make sure that the person using it does find it pretty, the aroma is they're attracted to the aroma. They find it a nice aroma.
Yeah, yeah, sure. I mean, this can also be very subjective. Yeah, like I
Yeah.
know a lot of people who cannot stand lavender,
Hmm.
and I even know some women who also cannot stand the smell of rose.
Yeah, I'm not huge on rose. I don't mind it when it's diluted. A lot of our listeners know that for me it's patchouli. Patchouli and I don't get along. If
It's the
I've talked
same for
about in
me.
some recent podcasts where I've trying to integrate patchouli
Ha! Yeah,
into a couple blends. I did it in a bath. I did it in a different blend, but I'm like, oh, more than one drop. It's pushing it, and oh yeah, anytime there's patchouli, I'm like, oh, I'm gonna say no.
we have the same taste exactly. I also cannot stand patchouli at all.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Versus I know so many who absolutely love it. Like they find it to be an aroma that brings them either back to childhood, or they find it the earthiness where I don't find it smells earthy because I love like vetiver, cedarwood. I love my woodsy
yeah,
oils. And the first
it's
time someone had
exactly yeah,
said patchouli
it's
smells like
exactly
dirt, I'm like, no.
yeah, it's exactly like that for me too. Because I also like the earthy smell of vetiver, which is the name of your podcast. Also,
Yeah.
I absolutely love it. But I also cannot stand patchouli. It's the same.
Nice. And I know Rachel, she's not a huge fan. She doesn't mind the smell of vetiver, the other co-founder of Essentria, but she's not a huge fan of it. So we often talk about that. But I find a lot of people too, it's like geranium. It's another one of those you love it or you hate it. I find there's always those few oils, you love it or you hate it when it comes to the aroma. And that's where it's
Yeah,
important knowing your client of, do I add
yeah,
this? Do I not add it? Because you can have all the perfect chemistry mixture, but if they don't like the smell, then they're not going to use it.
exactly, exactly.
Hmm.
Yeah, I
No.
couldn't agree more.
Is there anything that should be used cautiously when looking at the chemistry of essential oils?
Definitely, yeah. When you play, with some chemical compounds like bergantin,
Hmm.
yeah, and furocoumarins,
Yeah.
of course, you have to be careful if you are blending a lot of oils, a lot of essential oils that are derived from citrus peels. You're not supposed to mix them together, if they contain these furocoumarins,
Hmm.
because they add up. And I mean, when we're talking about phototoxicity, yeah, um, another thing one should be careful about, I think it's that when you are mixing ketones, yeah,
Hmm.
if you are playing with toxic ketones, you should also be careful with this. Like you cannot combine like camphor with other toxic ketones, like tuyon, for example. Yeah, you have to be a little bit careful.
Yeah, and that's some great points of just being cautious with some of those things.
Yeah, definitely. I think another group of compounds one has to be careful with is aldehydes. Yeah, because they're very strong aromatic compounds. You also find them in lemongrass, which I said it's my favorite oil. And you can also find that stuff in cinnamon bark. They can be quite sensitizing, especially if they're oxidized. I mean, they have wonderful antimicrobial and anti-inflammatory properties, but it's a fact that they can also cause skin irritation, especially in higher doses, or to people who are prone to allergies. And of course, if you are playing with citral, with essential oils that contain citral, you always have to be careful if you have a pregnant woman. Yeah, you have to be careful with that because citral you cannot give it to a pregnant woman. And
Hmm.
another compound that one should be a little bit careful, especially in the part of the world I am, which is the Eastern Mediterranean, is methyl salicylate. Yeah, you have to be careful with
Yeah,
that.
methyl
Be-
salicylate is, yeah.
yeah, because I mean, it's a compound which is a wonderful anti-inflammatory. It's great for pain blends and topical use, but it's also a blood thinner. It actually you can compare it to aspirin, yeah, in that regard. So if you have people on anticoagulant medication or with bleeding disorders, this is something you should know before you use something like that. And in that part of the world where I am, there are some people that have this G6PD deficiency.
Yeah.
Yeah, so this is something you should know, but the other person should know it too, because if you're working with people that are 55 plus, they may have this enzymatic deficiency and not be aware of it.
Yeah, I've been hearing more and more actually about the that deficiency. What was it? G6PD, right?
Yeah,
That's how you say
absolutely.
it. Yeah, and yeah, I haven't dove too far deep into it. But I've just been seeing more and more people actually recognizing and realizing that that is part of their health history, their health charts. They have a deficiency in that, and that they do need to be more cautious. And some people don't realize it.
Yeah, it's a thing, like I have a client, he's like 58 years old, and he paid a visit to the dentist. And as a precaution, I mean, this person is my client. He's not a kind of guy that takes conventional medicines. Yeah. And the dentist prescribed streptomycin, which is an antibiotic, just as a precaution
Mhm. Yeah.
after this treatment. And the person almost died because he had this G6PD deficiency and didn't know it.
Yeah.
Yeah, it can be really an issue for some people.
No, absolutely.
Yeah.
And this is the reminder of like, this is why when I see so many times in different groups of essential oils are natural, they're safe, they're great. Yes,
Yeah.
they are amazing, but as to safe, they can be when used safely, but they can also be very dangerous when not used safely. This is why it's important to be respectful of the oils and use them appropriately and safely.
Yes, absolutely. Sometimes I find that the term essential oil or aromatherapy, even, it can be a little bit misleading for some people. Yeah, because aromatherapy can refer to fragrance therapy.
Yeah.
Yeah, but it's not that, because essential oil have very potent compounds, and some essential oils, especially like the wintergreen, since we're
Hmm.
talking about methyl salicylate, it can be something like a conventional medicine because it contains an isolated compound at such a great concentration.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, and people don't realize, especially with something like wintergreen, that it also is processed different in the body. So it takes longer to exit the body. And I remember seeing some posts for like some pain management blends where it would be like almost 50% of the blend would be like wintergreen or wintergreen and birch, and I would just cringe at seeing these formulas, not formulas, these blends online that you could tell that they had no knowledge of what they were doing. And then they're telling people to apply it like every hour. And I'm like, you are almost going to like put your liver into like an overdrive of constantly trying to eliminate it from the body. I'm like, that is so not safe.
yeah. This is, I think, another misconception. Yeah, because a lot of these chemical compounds actually burden the liver. Yeah, because your liver considers them like medicines, like
Mhm,
conventional medicinals, and you think you're in a way detoxifying also
mhm.
your system, when in fact you're placing a good challenge at your liver. Yeah.
Yeah, anything that we're applying on the body, anything that we're taking internally, which I'm not talking about taking essential oils internally. I'm just talking about like anything at all, any type of medication, cream, any like the liver has to like the liver is our cleansing system. It is our filter. That is what it does is it takes rid of everything and it filters through and it cleanses. And so everything has to pass through it. And the more stuff we put on our body, then the more toxic overload that the liver is doing. It's taking on more and more and more, and then it's harder and harder for it to work. And
Absolutely.
that includes essential oils. It's still something that is being put on the skin. It's still something we are inhaling. And it's something that the liver needs to process and filter through for us to eliminate. It's just like as if you took,
Yeah.
an Advil or a vitamin, right? All of any supplement that you're taking, any herbs that you're taking, it's still the same process. It still has to go through the liver to be processed. So it's important that people actually remember that, but they just see it's plant, it's natural, so it's safe, which is not always the case.
Oh, come on. I mean, poison hemlock is natural, yeah? Okay, and so many toxic plants. Yeah.
Yeah. I use the same thing of my son and I, we played hide and seek in a local little forest in our park. And we left that day covered in poison oak. He was covered in poison oak.
Oh,
I had it around my ankles, about maybe 6 inches up my ankles. That's it. But he was literally covered from like his shoulders down to his feet. It was so back, chest, legs, arms, everywhere. And it
yeah,
was a couple of weeks of pure hell.
yeah,
And I
yeah,
can't imagine, I
yeah,
just had it on my ankles and he had his
yes.
whole body. So when people are saying, oh, plants are natural, yeah, so is the poison oak. And I can tell you, it is not fun to have something natural, but also like that rubbed all over you.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah. So, what about quenching? Because we were talking about, you were talking about how things you don't want to add certain things together. Can you talk about what quenching is?
Quenching, yes, yes. Um, quenching, usually it's a term that goes together with limonene, yeah?
Hmm.
Um, some people have their disagreements about quenching, but I have found that to be true. Like if you have a blend that contains eugenol and you
Hmm.
are worried that it can be like a skin irritant, very often if you add an essential oil which is rich in limonene, you can have this effect of quenching. So
Nice.
it's interesting. Yeah, usually I'm doing it, and in any case, if you combine an essential oil like a clove bud or cinnamon leaf, yeah,
Hmm.
with a citrus peel, usually it also smells nice.
Yeah, no, that's great. And it is. It's a nice way to sometimes just kind of they help kind of counter one another in a way.
Mhm.
So,
Yeah, yeah, of course, it somehow offsets some side effects an
mhm,
essential oil have. So it's always an interesting concept.
absolutely. Um, is there kind of anything else that people should take into account when looking at the chemistry and aromatherapy?
About the chemistry, I mean, sometimes it's always a good idea to do like a patch testing, yeah?
Hmm.
If you're working with an essential oil which is high in phenols or aldehydes, it's a good idea to do a patch test, even for legal reasons. And it's a good idea in the beginning to keep the dilution at a low level, like less than 1% anyway, to see how the client responds. Or, for example, like I have asthma, yeah? I have allergic asthma. So, if you want to play with an essential oil like eucalyptus, which is rich in eucalyptol, it's always a good idea to start low and see how the person responds to that.
Especially with breathing issues. I find anything
Yeah.
when it comes to the respiratory system, everyone can react a little bit differently.
Yes.
So that's, we always stress low and slow, but especially at the beginning. And I want to say, like, double more so when it comes to supporting someone with the respiratory system, because some people could find it overstimulating and all of a sudden it's like almost putting their lungs in overdrive versus some they'll have zero reaction. Like it'll just work how you're hoping it'll work and it'll just nicely open the airways and then you'll be able to, breathe better, which is the goal. But yeah, that's a good, really good point to make.
Yes, yes, and I always tell people when they are asking me which essential oil I could take, like to have at home, yeah, and diffuse it. Another thing I always say to people is when you're buying an essential oil, I mean, most of them should be stored in the fridge.
Mhm.
And many people are not aware of that thing because essential oils are not like milk products, yeah, that can develop mold, but still they can be oxidized and they can be quite sensitizing. I mean, unless if you're working with an essential oil, which is viscous and rich in sesquiterpenes like vetiver or patchouli, most of them should be stored at the fridge to be safe. Yeah.
And so can you explain what is oxidation and why is it bad for our essential oils?
Yes, of course. I think the most correct term should be auto-oxidation, yeah, because they're auto-oxidized. It's pretty much, I mean, oxidation is a word that relates to oxygen, right? So
Mhm.
this pretty much happens when an essential oil is exposed to oxygen. So um, that's why it's important to always close very well your essential oil bottles. And I also always tell people that if you have the ability to buy an essential oil in 5 ml bottles, it's
Mhm.
always better because you have a smaller quantity of the essential oil which is exposed to oxygen, so it's going
Mhm.
to last always longer. Of course, essential oils can be oxidized when they're exposed to light, to
Mhm.
sunlight, and also, of course, heat can be a factor. Yeah, like if you are storing your essential oils close to your AC machine or very close to a spot that's or next to a sunny window, it's not a good idea. They're going to be oxidized, especially aldehydes are prone to that, and and monoterpenes, of course, yeah, like essential oils which are high in monoterpenes. You
Mhm.
should keep them away from oxygen, light, and heat.
And so can you name what are a few essential oils that are high in monoterpenes, just to give our
Uh,
listeners a few ideas?
citrus peels, of course, all essential oils, yeah, that are derived from citrus peels, like
Yeah,
lemon peel, orange peel, all of that. And
the citrus.
surprisingly, you can also find limonene, of course, which is a very widespread monoterpene in some essential oils where you wouldn't expect it to be, like frankincense.
Mhm.
Yeah, is an essential oil which is very rich in lemon, and you wouldn't expect that. Or also, if you have a lot of essential oils from conifers, yeah,
Mhm.
which we all like to keep at home and diffuse, they're very rich in the A and B pinene,
Mhm.
which is another monoterpene. Actually, this is the most widespread monoterpene in nature also, and they can be oxidized also very, very quickly. So it's always a good idea to keep this essential oil in the fridge and take them out when you want to diffuse them or whatever.
And so once an oil is oxidized, why do we not want to use it?
Because it can become a skin irritant. Yeah, it can become a skin irritant, and if it's too much oxidized, it can even cause systemic sensitization. Yeah, so it should not be used. And that's why I always tell people to not to buy too many essential oils. Yeah, you don't need a huge arsenal of essential oils. It's better to have like a few at hand to know what's working for you and what you need, and use them as quickly as possible.
Yeah. And that's why I say when, people ask like how do they expire? They don't necessarily expire, but they do. It's the oxidization that causes them to no longer be safe to use because the chemicals can actually change in it. And then, like you said, it can become skin irritating. And then if you're sensitized to one oil, if there's another oil that does have very similar chemical makeup, then you can become sensitized to that oil too because they're so similar.
Yes, yes. You got sometimes on some occasions there is even a chemical compound that can become available at a larger concentration in an essential oil when it's oxidized. And you may
Mhm.
think like, oh, I have tea tree. Yeah, it's generally considered very safe. Yeah, but when it becomes oxidized, some stuff like dicumin or carin and all these compounds, they can become like strong irritants. And you may even not have the desirable effect of tea tree because you may not have, because the essential oil may not even contain the concentration you had in mind.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. And that's why we always, we tell people to, always store them in a cool, dry place.
Yeah, yeah.
If you have a room in the fridge, fantastic. If not, we always say, like you said, away. I have a cabinet that's kind of in like the dark corner. Light is never there, and it's the doors are constantly closed, and our house is just always cold. So it's like, okay, that's about as good as it's going to get. And it is, it's, you made a really, really great point of you don't need an abundance of oils. There's no reason to have 100 different essential oils. You're not going to use most of them, most likely. Focus on, the top ones that are your go-tos. Especially if you're not a clinical aromatherapist, if you're just, using them for yourself at home and your family, like
Mhm.
there's very rarely a time you're going to be needing all 100 oils.
Yes, yes,
um yeah.
absolutely. I think that most of us can be very well with like 10 essential oils. Yeah,
Hmm.
I think it's a good number, and
Hmm.
also it depends on your goal. Yeah, like some people are using essential oil mostly for their massage therapy practice,
Yep.
and okay, and once that they have an essential oil, they can also diffuse it. Yeah, I mean, if you're a massage therapist, why should you buy helichrysum? Yeah, and which is a very costly essential oil.
Hmm.
It's going to be oxidized at a point, and you're not going to use it anyway.
Yeah.
Like
See, that's one that we use often in our house because we have boys in sports. And actually, I just made one last week after my son's first baseball game, and
oh,
not him, but another little boy on his team. The pitch hit him when he was up to bat, and by the time he made it to the dugout, he had a goose egg that was very large on his leg. Thankfully, it was his leg, but it had swollen so fast. And I remember I had a roller last year and I was happy I did get it because my oldest was a pitcher and he got the ball hit back to him and it smashed him
oh,
and
oh,
he
that's bad.
dropped like a sack of potatoes because it hit him, thankfully, again in the leg, not in the face. Um, but I had my oils directly on me and I put them on and he barely bruised. Like he didn't
That's
have
great.
anything and he could go in 2 innings. Like he sat one inning out and he was right back in. So it's like but you have to know your oils that you're going to use and not use because if you're not going to
Of
use
course,
it and it's just going to oxidize, then you're wasting your money on buying the oils. And that's just, and we want to keep the oils
absolutely.
sustainable. We don't want to just have oils laying around for no reason either.
Yes, yes, absolutely, absolutely.
Mm. Oh, and you had said something and it made me think of something else. So yeah, and right, when we're applying oils and they are oxidized, that's always the safety concern is we don't want anyone to become sensitized. If you do have oxidized oils, what would be the best way to dispose of them?
Usually, I mean, you're not supposed to just toss them in the water. Yeah.
Hmm.
Of course. What I have been taught is that the best way to toss away unessential oil which is oxidized and you don't want to use it is to just dispose it in a pile of soil.
Yeah. I always heard
And
that too. Kind of dig a
yeah,
little
yeah,
hole, empty out the bottle.
exactly. Yeah, yeah. And preferably somewhere far from plants. Yeah, because some essential oils can also be a very strong biocides.
Hmm. And also
So
away from if you have family pets. So if you have like a dog that you
absolutely.
let out in your backyard and you
Yes.
know it likes this one area, don't do it there because you don't want the
Yes, yes,
dog to
yes.
dig it up, things like
Of
that.
course,
So
of
kind of
course.
a spot far away from any animals and deep enough so that animals can't dig it up either and then bury it.
Yes, yes, you are right. I'm not a person who has pets, so I didn't think of it. But usually, yeah, this is what I tell people: away from the water and
Hmm.
to a pile of soil and to cover the pile of soil as well. I think this is the safest way.
Yeah. Yeah. Don't just throw them in your recycling bin half full, things
Of
like
course
that.
not.
Because then, the bottle will crush and then it'll leak all over. And some of them are flammable, things like that. And it's just
Absolutely.
not worth the risk. So
Of course,
absolutely.
of
Yeah.
course, of course. I even have a compost bin. I would never throw essential oil in my compost bin also
Yeah.
because then the composting would simply stop.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. I
it's
didn't think of
something
that.
if you cannot throw in the compost bin. Yeah,
Yeah. I didn't think of
you
that
just need
aspect of
plain,
it too.
yeah,
Yeah.
you need just plain soil.
Yeah. And again, right, that comes back to we often get the question of how long are they good for? And so it can take different oils different amount of times to oxidize
Yes,
also.
yes, of course. I don't think that there is a specific answer to that because it also depends on the way you store them. Yeah,
Yeah.
it depends on the way you store them. Like I have kept for over 1 year lemon essential oil in my fridge, and it was absolutely okay. Like I used it on my skin, and it was fine. But it has also happened to me when I was a beginner, yeah, to use geranium essential oil, which I had left outside of the fridge
Mm.
for more than 1 year on a little bit sunny spot also. I wasn't very cautious, and it was a little bit sensitizing, like it caused a slight redness on my skin. So this can be really, really relative, but I think that 1 year is like a good time frame for an essential oil so that it's
Mhm.
safe.
Yeah, and like I said, it really depends on storing, and some
And the
last longer than
box,
others. Like citrus
yes,
oils are going to oxidize faster
yes,
than something like vetiver or patchouli that actually gets better with age, or
yes,
sandalwood that
yes,
also gets better with age. Things, the
of
aromas
course.
can not, they don't necessarily get better with age. It just the aromas shift. The chemical constituents actually do change a little bit with
Mhm.
the oxygen, with the
Yeah.
air that it interacts with.
It's like
Um,
wine. It's some essential
yeah,
oils. The one you mentioned, they're like wine. And they
yeah,
get better as they age. But another factor that most of us don't know is the batch. Yeah, the
yeah,
date of the batch. Because okay, let's say you bought an essential oil, but if it's not from a small producer, like what we say, an artisan essential oil, you can never be really sure about the production date.
yeah. And it's true, right? You don't know. Like it's a huge chain. So from when the plant was harvested to when the essential oil was distilled and made, that date to it then sitting on their shelf for a while before it gets bottled and shipped to the supplier, and then maybe the supplier then goes to the store itself. Maybe there's two different spots before it gets to the store, wherever you're
Yeah,
getting the
absolutely.
essential oil supplier from. Like there could be anywhere from one, three, five different stopping
Yeah,
points. So who knows how long it has sat on the shelf in all of those
absolutely.
areas.
Yeah, yeah,
That's a good point to remember.
yeah.
So before we kind of wrap this up, any last minute kind of words of wisdom or tips that you would like to share with our listeners?
Yeah, like I have a tip that I think it would be a good tip for beginners is to always take notes when you're blending.
Mm.
Yeah, like I remember when I was a beginner, like in my early days, I had created some amazing blends. Yeah, like I still remember the scent, and I had not written anything down, so I could not recreate them. However hard that I tried, I just could not recreate them. That was really frustrating. So, and this is of course entirely avoidable here. So, whether someone is experimenting with ratios, scent profiles, or adjusting based on the client response or whatever, it's always a good idea to write everything down. Yeah, like the essential oils you use, the drops or ml ratios, the reason behind your choices. You should always write that down.
I'm very much laughing on the inside because I did the same thing. And I'm
All of
still
us.
guilty for it a lot
Yes.
of times, but I have made so many different blends that I wish I knew what I actually did. I was like, I know what the oils are, but I didn't necessarily put down exactly how many drops, like what the exact ratio is, the exact formula so I could duplicate it. And so in my head, I'm always like, I know I'm gonna remember this. I'm not gonna.
Yeah,
I
yeah,
don't remember breakfast from. Actually, I do. I have the same breakfast every day, so I don't remember my supper from last night. So I am not going to remember some blend that I made, and to this day, and that's why. When I make anytime that I like make different blends, I always say put a label on, at least the label.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Step one is get in the habit of labeling things because I kind of have a jar that I just have a container that I just have to show people of like these are all things wasted. They're complete garbage because there's no labels. And I'm trying to do like the sniff test, like, what was this? Because I'm like, I'm going to
Yeah,
remember. I'm not going to remember. And
yeah,
then
me too. Yeah, it's the same for me.
yeah, and then take that one step further and now do it for the formula. Like just have a notebook dedicated just for the formulas. And I know we had a notebook that we created, an
Oh,
online one that you can just easily print off or keep it digital. And
very
it's
useful.
exactly that of like, one
I'm
maybe
gonna need that.
for like bedrooms or one for cleaning or one for springtime, one for wintertime, one for pain management, one for sleep, like a page for all kinds of these different. So then you can be like, oh, I need something for sleep. You can go to the sleep section, like, oh, these were some great oils or these were some great blends. And I just laugh so much because I have so many blends that I didn't write down and I wish I
Yeah,
did.
yeah, it was the same for me. Now I also write down the date also.
Yes, yes, the date you made it is very, very important.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So if people want to get in touch with you, learn more from you, where can they find you?
I think the best place to look for me online is my Instagram account, which is at Flow Athens. It's one word, Flow Athens.
Great.
So
Yeah.
people can find me there. I also post a lot of stuff on foraging there, so
Mhm.
people can look for me there.
I just started getting into foraging more. We have a local group that I've gone to a couple different events with them, and I would love to get more into it. It's one of those things until you're confident and comfortable with it, and you shouldn't just pick willy nilly things off the side of the road if you don't know what it is because that's super dangerous. But I've gone a couple groups, and I love it. It's amazing to know what's the local plants, what's edible, can be medicinal. I love foraging, so I think that's fantastic that you share all that
I
information
can
too.
even tell you that I had my first foraging experiences from small distilleries. Yeah, because I had visited some small distilleries in Greece where people were actually foraging some of the plants they were distilling. One of them was even distilling carrot seed essential oils. Yeah, and
Nice.
this couple, they were from Crete. They were actually foraging the carrot seed themselves.
Huh, interesting.
So that was one of the first foraging lessons I had. It was from an aromatherapist.
Oh, I love that. That's so interesting. Thank you for coming on today's episode. If
You're
any of
welcome,
our
Nikki.
listeners want to get in touch with you, we do have your contact information below, your website, your Instagram. You also have a book on Amazon.
Yes.
So any of our listeners can click on any of the links below to learn more from you, get in touch with you. So thank you so much, Elefteria,
Thank
for
you,
coming
Nikki.
on today's episode. Have an amazing day,
Thank you.
everyone.
Yeah. You also. Bye-bye.
Thank you for spending your time with us here at Vetiver Vibes. This episode was brought to you by Essentria, a leading online aromatherapy school. Don't forget to check out some of our free resources at www.schoolofessentria.com.
If you love this episode or you got a lot of value out of it, please make sure you share it with someone in your community who you think would enjoy it too. If you haven't already subscribed or reviewed the show yet, you can go on over to your preferred streaming platform and hit subscribe, then leave a review. This is the best way to help support us, and we appreciate it. Email us with a screenshot of your review, and we will send you a free guided meditation as our way to say thank you.
This podcast is for information purposes only. We are certified clinical aromatherapists and holistic health professionals. If you have a medication concern, please refer to your health team. Everyone's health is unique to themselves, so the topics and suggestions stated may or may not apply directly to you.